Okay, everybody. Today we're going to talk about some more shapes and things you can do with shape layers and doing designs for your animations. Um, Now, this is the first lesson that's going to build on our project that's going to take us through the rest of the semester. So be sure whatever you do today to save it. Um, and so I'm going to do that right now, just for good measure. So I'm going to do a little save as. I'm going to go to my drive where I keep all this class's stuff, which is right here. And then I'm going to do a new folder, and I'm going to call this hologram project. Um, create that folder, and then inside here, I have my working folder. But because this is just an After Effects project and we're not going to be editing anything, I'm just going to make an AE folder, and I'm going to call this phone hologram. All right, and save it. Now, what I'm going to do at the end of class today is I'm going to grab a shot of a phone on a desk that we can motion track and do all these effects on. But I'm going to do it with an iPhone 6 Plus, which has a 16:9 screen. In fact, that is an HD screen, I think. So what we're going to create today is some of what could go on that screen. So I'm going to create a new composition, and because I know it's 16:9, I'm going to make this composition 1920 by 1080, and I am going to record this footage at 23.98. Okay. And the duration of this will probably only end up being around 10 seconds, but let's make it 15 seconds just to be safe. All right, so I'll click OK there. Actually, I'm going to call this screen animation. All right, so let's use a few of the things that we've worked on already, but I'm going to show you a couple more little tricks with using shape layers and masks and things. So first of all, I'm going to create a rectangle that is going to become the border of my screen. So just imagine this is the illuminated screen of my phone. Okay, that's what we're building here. And then later on, we're gonna like digitally glue it to the face of the phone so that it becomes the screen of the phone. So I'm gonna just make this something like that, just inside the border of my screen. And then under fill for this shape layer, I'm going to turn off the fill. Click OK. And I'm going to make the stroke a bit bigger. Till it pretty much almost touches the edge there. And this is going to become the border of my animation. I can change the color of this, but I think for now white will be okay. And then now with shape layers with the stroke, I am going to click on this add button. So this add button up here is also the same as this add button right here. Right here, right here. So I'm going to click add, and when we talked earlier this semester, I put a wiggle path on it so that it would wiggle and vibrate and stuff like that. We also added twist and things like that. But this time, I'm going to add trim paths. What trim paths will do is it will trim the stroke around the edge of this shape layer. So if I twirl down that trim paths effect, I can put a keyframe on the start and the end and the offset, and just check out what this does. So my last vertex is right here. So if I change this, I can animate it so that it will start there and draw that square on, okay, over time. You can also do the opposite and have it drawn from that side. So, and then the offset is where that's going to start and end. So if I want it to kind of start in the middle here, I put this at like there and just barely separate these a little bit. That tells me where my intersection is right there. Okay, so if I want it to start on the top, that's what I can do. And then I can rotate that around anywhere. So if I wanted it to start here, I could. All right, so what I'm going to do with this totally drawn on is I'm going to go forward to about 1 second and say this is where I want this animation to end up. Okay, totally drawn on. All right. So now if I put my playhead back at the beginning, I can change my start. And if I put the start and the end at 50%, what it will do is it'll go to the opposite end of the rectangle and these lines will start drawing around like that. Okay, nifty? All right. Now I'm going to add one more little piece here, and I'm going to take this offset and I'm going to change it so that it starts here. So it starts drawing on from the opposite side, but as it's drawing on, it's rotating around. Well, I just kind of undid what I just did. Let's add more. Let's add around one more time. So the actual value of this will be here. So it does kind of a full rotation around the whole thing as it's drawing on. So the one end is kind of catching up with the other end. Cool. And then, as always, I like adding easy ease, which the key command for that is F9. Okay. So I got a little line drawing on now. Well, what I was doing is I was moving my playhead forward 1 frame so that I knew where the offset was putting it, and then I placed the offset where I wanted it to be, and then moved that keyframe to line up with the others. So right now with it, it's 50-50. There's nothing on there, and I don't know where it's starting. So that's how I just figured out where it was starting. All right, cool. Good times. Now let's do some more trickery with the trim paths. I'm going to just deselect everything in my timeline and go to my pen tool and draw a line. Just going to click here, shift, click here-ish, and now I've got another shape layer. I'm going to add trim paths to that again. Only this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo this layer real quick by clicking this button so that that's the only one I'm looking at. I'm going to go to my trim paths and do trim my start so that it's at 0% and my end at 0% at the beginning. And then I'm going to go forward just 20 frames. And then I'm going to put them both at the end. Whoops. 100 and 100. So watch, it didn't do anything, right? That's because all the way along here, the start and the end are exactly the same. But if I go to the start and ease that, at the beginning, go to the end and ease that at the end, then the start will come out faster, and that's how you make one of those little blippity lines. And you can change these a little bit too, so that the end will maybe wait a little bit, whoops, to start coming in. But they both end up gone at the same time. So it's just a little line blip. Lovely, right? All right, usually blips happen even faster than that, so I don't know. Maybe what I'll do is I'll go into the graph editor and make the end like really whip in a lot faster so that it goes wow, and it gets really long really quick. All right, now I'm going to run into some problems. I'm going to grab the repeater. I'm going to add another thing in the repeater. Remember when we were doing the array, like around this way and then of shapes spreading across the screen and then down the screen? I'm just going to add one repeater to this. And if I twirl down the repeater, I'm going to make a star by transforming the repeater. And instead of having the position be the thing that we changed, I'm going to put that back to 0 for position 0, 0 under the repeater. And I'm going to change the rotation so that my line repeats out a bunch of times. Hey, that's actually kind of an accidentally cool thing. Take a look at that. Fun. Not what I meant to go for, but it's fun. What I'm going to do now is under the path, I need to move this path so that that star ends up with all those points in the middle touching each other. Should be about right there. Like literally everything I'm doing right now is keyframeable. Well, that's going the wrong way. I need that to go out. So let's move this path this way. There we go. Okay, so I got a little blippity. Fun, right? So now what I could do is add scale and rotation to this as one object. Okay, so I can keyframe that like crazy. So maybe what I should do here is, yeah, that's fine. I'll just leave that in the middle like that. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to duplicate this now. I'm going to duplicate this layer, and I'm going to hit U to uncover my keyframes. And I'm going to change, maybe actually what I'll do is I'll go into my repeater, and I'll change the settings of my repeater to less copies, and change the transform of the repeater. Here, and then change my path a little bit. Oops. I'm all over the place here. Sorry, guys. Just make this one longer. Scrunch these keyframes together so that it happens at 2 different speeds. Now I'm going to scale this one down so that it still doesn't go off the edge of the screen. And I got 2 different sized star blips. All right. So you can mess around with shapes all you want. Let's do another one with the repeater though. I want to go through that again for you real quick. This time I'm going to do it with a shape like a star. Okay. So I'm going to just draw a star here in the middle of the screen. Just kidding. I have to deselect all my other shape layers. So now that everything's deselected, I'm going to draw a star right here. All right. Now again, I'm going to go through this repeater thing with you. If I add a repeater, then I'm adding duplicates inside the repeater of that star. Okay? So I'm going to go 6 on this one. And then what I'm going to do is under the repeater, twirl down the transform repeater, and then change it from the position being the offset, make that 0, 0, change the rotation, and this time what I'm going to do is do the math. 360 divided by 6 will give me my answer of how much I need it to be done. So now I've got this interesting looking star, but I want that rotation to spread it around in a wheel. So what I need to do is go to my transform polystar and change the position of it so that it moves away. Oh yeah, the polystar path. We need to go here. So we have star, blip, and then polystars. Now let me show you the difference between changing the transform settings of the polystar itself and the layer. If I rotate the star, all the stars will rotate as copies of that first star. Okay. So we can add, keyframes to this and just have this rotate. But we can also have the rotation of the layer, which is the main transform down here, rotate this way. So we have rotation happening within rotation. Okay. And if I just hit U and uncover those keyframes, I can spread them out so that they are just moving throughout the whole thing. Okay, so again, I've got 2 different transforms. I've got transforming the polystar, which would be moving it like this, moving them in and out toward one another and away from each other. And I've got the position of the entire polystar, which if I hit P will bring up that, and that would move it like this as a whole group. Okay. Question? That's under the repeater properties and in the rotation. And that's how you get them to go around each other. So you do the rotation of the repeater to like, I think it was 60 degrees. And I had 5 copies. Polystar, repeater, yeah, 6 copies. I'm going to add some scale to this as well so that this will start out at 0, but then like, I like everything to start out with nothing on the screen. All right, and I add ease to everything. Like at a minimum, add the easy ease if you're not going to go into the graph editor. Okay, sweet, right? Now here's something really cool. I've got this rectangle down here at the bottom, which is taking up the entire screen, but I want to maybe do another rectangle in the middle. So if I duplicate this shape layer, I should probably start naming these. Border. I'm going to call this one blip 1, blip 2, stars. All right. Now I'm going to duplicate the border, put it up on top, and rename this one text box. And then here's a really cool thing. So if I try to scale this down, see how it changes the size of the stroke and everything? That's because I'm changing the scale of the entire layer. Beach ball. That tells me to save it before it crashes. But if I go into the rectangle shape, so if I twirl down the contents of this rectangle and go to the rectangle path, I can change the size of the rectangle, but it keeps the same size stroke. And if I unlink these, then I can turn this into more of a rectangle. And now what I'm going to do is, because this is on top, I want to change this so that the stroke is a different color. Just picking random colors right now. And then I'm going to add fill and make it black. Click OK. That way, as these stars are moving, they're kind of moving behind this solid. I don't like the trim pads on that. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete the trim pads from this one. There, now it's just on. How should I move this? How should I make this box come on? You can use a combination of scale, rotation. You like scale? So like go from 0% up to 100%. Okay. I'm going to ease that. Maybe what I'll do is I'll bounce it in a little bit. All right. Whatever this animation is, it's up to you. Okay. Just come up with some fun stuff. but I want it to kind of be perpetually moving, because eventually, once you get all your layers in, we're going to turn them all into 3D layers, and then we're going to kind of bring them apart from one another so that the hologram looks like it's actually coming off the screen. So that's what we're going to do. We're not doing that today. We're just making shapes. We're drawing shapes. Okay. Now let's do. I'm going to do another little animation, little pre-animation. I'm going to make a new composition. I'm going to call this one glitzy boxes, I guess. And I'm going to click OK. And for this one, I'm going to use my rectangle tool and make a square. Let's make the stroke on this something else. And then what I'm going to do with this one is do a little expression that you're going to love. Let's see. All right, so under your opacity settings, hit T for opacity, and then I'm going to do a keyframe. I'm going to nudge that keyframe to the right a little bit, 2 frames. Make it 0 so that it takes 2 frames to fade in. Then I'm going to go forward 2 more frames and change it to 50%, go forward a couple more frames, change it to 100%, go forward a couple more frames, change it to 25%, go forward a couple more frames, change it to 100%, and now it's kind of just doing this, right? I'm going to do a few more of those, but this time I'm going to have it go down to 75%. Oh, no, wait. I'm going to gradually make this go down. So I'm going to go back down to 25%, up to 75%, down to 10%, up to 50%, down to 5%, up to 30%, and then a few more frames, down to 0. Okay. So now what I want this to do is just repeat that over and over so that it's just constantly flickering. Okay. And this is probably your, I don't know if I've done this in this class already, the looping expression. Okay. So in order to add an expression, this is the only one I'm going to teach you this semester because this will be your introduction to like intermediate After Effects. Hold down Option and click on the stopwatch. And that turns your value to red, but this allows you to write all those expressions like, I want you to keep doing this forever, or I want you to do the opposite animation of this other layer over here, and I want you to do the same animation, but I want you to have it follow it this many seconds later. You know, it's like all that kind of stuff. This one's pretty simple. You just type LOOP, capital OUT, so loop out, and then a parenthesis, quotation, cycle, quotation, close parenthesis. And what that does is it'll just cycle those keyframes indefinitely. Okay? Fun, right? All right. And the reason why I built this in a pre-comp is because now what I want to do is go over here and just put it over here duplicate this, let's see, 3 times. And I'm going to select this top layer, drag it down here, and then select all 4 of the layers, go to my Align panel, and just align these so that they all, that was kind of accidental, so that they're all doing this together. Okay. Now what I want to do is offset these. So I'm just going to go forward a couple of frames. Actually, let me teach you this. I'm going to go forward 5 frames. Hit Command A to select all of them. And then I'm going to Option right bracket to make them all this long. Now here's another little thing we haven't really done yet, but I'm going to sequence these layers. Under my Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers. And then if I just click OK here, it will space them all out from beginning to end of each one. So now watch what's happening. Right? So now what I'm going to do is just drag the end of these all the way out to the end. So that what happens is you've got this. Nifty. See that there's your glitter boxes. You could further this and just duplicate them and rearrange them. Go here, move them over here, and just like keep this array going with lots and lots of layers. And you can see why after you've created enough layers, you might want to pre-comp them because this would get pretty messy. But I'm just going to take these and go all the way across. Oops. And one more. All right, and I'm going to draw a box around everything and just kind of slide them into the middle. All right. That's pretty gnarly. All right, you can start to see a pattern happening. But you could do that. You could do that again. Just bring all these together, make them all 1 frame long, or even 2 frames. Maybe I'll make them 2 frames, and then sequence them all again, and then go to the end and set the, trim them out. Fun little background. All right, now here's the fun that you can have in the main composition. Under screen animation, let's just pull glitzy boxes down, maybe even like behind the border, just make it really way in the background. Okay, and then here you could, if you wanted to, add more effects, because now all these glitzy boxes, they're just 1 layer, right? They're 1 object now because I built them in a pre-composition. So I can I'm trying to use keyboard shortcuts but I don't have them. If you go up to your effects and presets and type in radial, R-A-D-I-A-L, add a radial blur, then you can make it even more psychedelic. Okay. You could, if you didn't like that one, you could do bulge and make them bulge out. Make the bulge negative so that they like go backward. You could even animate that bulge so that it goes like this. Bulge and radial blur. See what that looks like. That's interesting. If you're into that sort of thing. Oof, it's kind of hard to look at. Maybe I don't like it. Ditch that, try something different. Anyway, so this is going to be fun once we get into breaking this into 3D. So I've made a background. I've made a box that I'm going to put some text in, and I've made a little blip of stars that come out. Okay, so I've got some perpetual motion happening. Lovely, right? So this is your assignment over the next couple weeks, is to make yourself animated background. Last thing I'm going to do today is just make some text. Sweet stuff. Okay, one last thing and then I'm done, I promise. I want this box to wipe on the sweet stuff text. Okay. To do that, I'm going to duplicate the box, okay, and place it above the sweet stuff text. But for this one, I'm going to turn the stroke to 0, and I'm going to delete these keyframes of the duplicated box. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this box to the text box, so that no matter what I do with this box now, that the duplicate will follow it. Now I do a track mat. So I'm going to go down to my little button here at the bottom, toggle switches modes, so that I can turn, I get my track mat column. I turn this and say anything on the layer above me that is opaque, that's what I'll be seen under. So I'll make that an alpha mat, and now the text is coming on inside there. Wing, sweet stuff. All right. Okay, that's it for today. Yeah, just play around with it. Don't do this. I mean, do your own thing. And then this will be pretty cool, because what we'll do is maybe we'll have we can videotape somebody doing like a disco dance or something. And put like a disco dancer on this disco floor. Woo! Another thing you could do is like you could build an expression with the color and keyframe the color so that the colors change, and then at different speeds from one another, and do a loop out on that, and then just, yeah, it gets even more. That's why, like, when you see a lot of these animations that you're like, wow, there's so much intricate stuff in it. How did they just build that? It's like, well, they didn't just, you know, click on the make this awesome button. There's like a lot of intricate things you could do. Like I could do a sub animation inside each one of these background squares and get even more crazy with it. So all right, for now, that's what we got. That's what I got. Let's see what you got. All right, thanks everybody.